My name is Dana Archer. I was 36 years old when my marriage ended, not with a scream, but with a sentence I was never meant to hear. That morning, I stood in front of my vanity longer than usual. It was our 10th wedding anniversary. I chose a deep plum silk dress, not to impress, but to remind myself who I was before I became tired. 10 years of building a life can quietly drain the color from you if you are not careful. I had planned a surprise, not a luxury restaurant or a crowded party, but the old campus pub near Hyde Park, the place where my husband and I held our wedding reception when we were young, poor, and certain love would be enough. I slipped a watch into my bag, something he once mentioned, half joking, saying his old one looked worn when he taught. I remembered everything. That was my habit. I remembered his words, his moods, his needs. As I drove through the city at dusk, memories kept resurfacing, cheap meals shared, promises whispered. The night he squeezed my hand and said, "Struggle with me now, and one day I will give you the world." When I arrived, I noticed his black Mercedes parked behind the building. For a brief second, my heart softened. Maybe he remembered our anniversary too. Maybe we were still aligned. I walked around to the back entrance, the same kitchen door we used years ago when money was tight. It was slightly open. Warm light spilled onto the pavement. Then I heard his voice. "She is pure, Dana. She does not care about money. She understands me. We can make new memories here. Let the old ones fade." I froze with the gift in my hand. Have you ever realized in a single moment that the life you protected no longer exists? I did not cry. I did not walk in. I simply understood. This ends tonight. Before I became the woman standing outside that kitchen door, I was someone else entirely. I grew up in a stable home, not extravagant, but secure. My parents taught me responsibility early, and by my late 20s, I was already building my own company. I met Garrett at a university lecture. He was brilliant, thoughtful, and struggling, a professor with big ideas and empty pockets. My parents warned me, not because he was poor, but because his family depended on him in ways that left no room for a partner. I believed love could balance that weight. I believed patience was strength. After we married, reality arrived quietly. His mother fell ill. His sister needed help. Research grants ran short. One problem became 5, then 10. I stepped in without the unasked. That is how it starts. I handled hospital bills from my phone while sitting in waiting rooms. I paid tuition extensions and credit cards late at night after finishing payroll. When his research stalled, my company funded it. When his mother needed better care, I arranged it. When his sister wanted a better life, I financed it. Garrett used to say I was amazing. Later, he stopped noticing. At home, I worked after midnight. At work, I carried everyone on my back. Garrett would sigh and say he felt pressure, that success scared him. I thought supporting him meant staying quiet. Love, I believed, meant absorbing weight so someone else could stand taller. There was a prenuptial agreement. My parents insisted. I signed it without thinking. I never imagined it would matter. I never imagined needing protection from the man I married. Looking back, I was not a wife. I was infrastructure, and infrastructure is invisible until it collapses. Standing behind that door, listening to him speak about purity and souls, I finally understood something I had ignored for years. He did not feel supported. He felt entitled. I stayed where I was, pressed against the cold brick wall, letting the sounds inside guide me. Her voice was soft, almost careful, like someone afraid to take up space. She talked about tuition deadlines, about a mother back home who was sick, about not knowing whether she could finish the semester. I recognized that tone. I had heard it many times before. Garrett answered her the way he used to answer me, calm, reassuring, certain. "Do not worry. I will take care of it. You just focus on studying. You are too gifted to be distracted by money." She hesitated. I heard it in the pause. "But where will the money come from? Your wife manages everything. Does she know you help me?" At the mention of me, his voice shifted. The warmth disappeared. Do not bring her up. She only understands numbers. All she talks about is work and money. Being with her feels like living in a closed room. With you, I can breathe." That was when the second betrayal landed. I knew that voice. I knew that fear disguised as innocence. I stepped closer to the narrow gap in the door and finally saw her face clearly. Celia Vance. I had signed her scholarship approval myself months earlier. Her application had described hardship, discipline, ambition. She had thanked me with tears in her eyes, calling me her inspiration. And now she was sitting in my memory on my husband's knee, funded by the same account that paid her tuition. In business, you learn patterns. Fraud leaves trails. So does betrayal. I suddenly saw everything clearly: the unfamiliar charges, the weekend expenses, the small withdrawals that never added up. I did not feel rage yet. I felt foolish for being thorough everywhere except in my own marriage. Behind that door, Garrett spoke about souls and art and freedom. Celia listened, believing every word. I did not interrupt them. I reached into my bag and opened my phone instead. If this was the truth, I wanted it complete, and I wanted it documented. I did not rush in. I took one full breath, straightened my dress, and pushed the door open. The sound cut through the room like a blade. They both startled. Celia slipped off his lap. Garrett stood up too fast, knocking his chair back. Fear looks different when it belongs to someone who has been lying. I walked to the table and pulled out a chair. I sat down calmly, crossing my legs the way I did in board meetings when numbers did not lie and excuses failed. "Do not stop," I said. "You were just explaining how pure she is." Garrett tried to speak. Nothing came out. His face drained of color. I looked at Celia briefly. She shrank into herself, eyes wet, hands folded, as if that posture could erase what I had seen. Then I turned back to my husband. "A moment ago you said I only understand money, that I suffocate you, that everything about me is outdated." I nodded slowly. "Let us be clear then. The house you live in, my work; the car you drive, my company; your research funding, my contracts; even the watch you complained about this morning, paid for by the woman you just called empty." Celia whispered something about love and connection. I raised one hand. "Not now." Garrett finally found his voice. "You had no right to listen. This is my private life. You control everything. Living with you feels like a cage." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. When people benefit from structure, they call it support. When they want to escape accountability, they call it control. "Tomorrow," I said, "I will file for divorce." His head snapped up. "Tonight, you will experience life without my structure. No money, no safety net, no silence from me." Celia looked up then, alarmed. Garrett took a step forward. "You cannot do that." I stood. "I already have." As I turned toward the door, I noticed movement behind them. Two familiar figures entering the pub, dressed carefully, smiling as if walking into a celebration. That was when I understood. This was not a mistake. It was a family decision. Daphne entered first, perfect hair, soft perfume, the practiced calm of a woman who never believed she could be questioned. Tessa followed, phone in hand, already annoyed by inconvenience. Their eyes moved from Garrett to Celia, then to me. "So this is the surprise dinner," Tessa said flatly. "You could have chosen a better place for drama." Daphne sighed as if tired of a long day. "Dana, you should not behave like this in public. A man has needs. If he strays, it's often because his home is cold." I looked at her, searching for hesitation. There was none. Tessa crossed her arms. "Garrett has a reputation. You cannot humiliate him like this. Whatever problem you have, you discuss it privately, not here." Privately, I repeated, like the way you all discuss this privately without me? Daphne frowned. Do not twist things. Celia is young. It's normal for a man to feel inspired. You have become too focused on money and control. You stopped being a wife. The words landed with precision. They had rehearsed this. I saw it clearly now. I asked one question. Do you know how much your son earns as a professor each month? Silence. About $4,000. Before taxes. That does not pay for your medications, your shopping, Tessa's lifestyle, or the home you live in. Tessa scoffed. He has projects, grants. You make it sound like we depend on you. I nodded. The projects are funded by my company, every one of them. Without my signature, they do not exist. Daphne waved her hand dismissively. Money again, always money. Our family has values, affection, loyalty. I felt something shift, not anger, resolution. Values are easy to praise when someone else pays the bill. Celia stepped forward, voice trembling. Please, we love each other. Let him go. You do not need him. I looked at all of them. The son who betrayed me, the mother who justified it, the sister who protected convenience, the girl who confused rescue with romance. You are right, I said quietly. I do not need him. I picked up my bag. Remember this moment. Remember what you chose. Then I walked out. Behind me, no one followed. They were already counting on something else. They were counting on my patience. I did not drive home right away. I pulled over, sat in silence, and let the noise inside my head settle. Then I made 3 calls. The first was to my assistant, Corinne. Her voice was steady, professional. I told her to freeze every secondary card connected to my accounts, Garrett's, his mother's, his sister's, not as punishment, as separation. The second call was to property management. The Lincoln Park house was mine before marriage. I asked for utilities and services to be paused while I was away. No drama, no explanations, just procedure. The third call was the most important. I contacted the finance department at my company and instructed them to withdraw corporate funding from Garrett's research project. The clause was clear: ethics violations void support. I asked them to notify the university formally the next morning. I did not touch anyone's health care. I removed myself as guarantor and requested the hospital contact Garrett directly for future billing. I transferred records. I left choices intact. That mattered to me. Revenge is loud. Boundaries are quiet. When Corinne hesitated, I told her something I had never said before. I am not abandoning anyone. I am resigning from a role I was never meant to play. That night, I did not cry. I packed a small bag and drove to a condo I had purchased years earlier, a place meant for rest that had quietly waited for me. As the city lights reflected off the lake, my phone buzzed. Declined charges, missed calls, confusion. I turned the phone face down. For the first time in 10 years, I was not fixing anyone else's problems. That was choosing clarity, and clarity does not negotiate. The next morning, I drove to my children's school earlier than usual. Ethan was 10, Maya was 8. They ran toward me like they always did, backpacks bouncing, faces open and trusting. That trust nearly broke me. We went for ice cream near the lake. I watched them eat in silence, trying to memorize the way their laughter sounded before everything changed. "Mom," Ethan said carefully, "are you and Dad fighting again?" I took a slow breath. Sometimes grown-ups realize they can't fix something together anymore. That does not change how much we love you. Maya's eyes filled immediately. "I do not want you to split up. Grandma always says families must stay together." Ethan did not cry. He looked straight at me. "Dad has someone else." My hands tightened around my cup. "I saw messages on his phone," he continued. "A girl saved as Celia, student. He smiles when he texts her. He never smiles like that at home. Maya whispered, Grandma says I am useless like you. Aunt Tessa takes my things and yells. That was the moment guilt hit me harder than betrayal ever had. I had protected them financially. I had failed to protect them emotionally. I knelt in front of them. If Mom and Dad live apart, who would you want to live with? Both answered without hesitation. You. Children feel truth the way adults feel weather. They know when a home is unsafe long before words exist. I hugged them tightly. From now on, I said, there will be no yelling, no fear, no pretending peace. They believed me. That became my contract with myself. I did not return to the house that night. By morning, my security lead, Jonas, called to confirm everything was in motion. The locks were changed, access codes reset, fingerprint entry updated. Only my name and my children's were active. Their personal belongings were packed carefully, clothes folded, documents separated, each box labeled. Nothing damaged, nothing hidden. Order matters when emotions do not. By late afternoon, the first call came in. Declined cards, confusion at the gate, raised voices. I let it ring. Around sunset, Jonas sent a short message. They are here. I watched through the security feed from my tablet. Daphne sat on one of the boxes, stunned. Tessa paced, shouting into her phone. The gate stayed closed. A taxi waited. The driver demanded payment. A card failed. Then another. Embarrassment has a sound. It is sharp and small. Garrett arrived later with Celia. He went straight to the gate and hit the intercom like force could change policy. I answered calmly through the speaker. This is not your home anymore. Please leave. You cannot do this, he said. Open the gate and we will talk. We will talk tomorrow in court. Celia cried. Tessa cursed. Daphne called my name as if invoking memory could restore privilege. I did not respond again. That night they stayed outside longer than pride allowed, waiting for softness that no longer existed. I turned off the feed. When you stop rescuing people, they call it cruelty. I call it closure. The night passed without me. I did not attend the divorce meeting. That was deliberate. When emotion walks into a room, reason usually leaves. I sent my attorney instead, with documents and instructions, not feelings. The meeting took place in a quiet coffee shop near campus, neutral ground, public enough to keep voices low. My lawyer laid the folder on the table and slid it forward. Divorce petition, custody request, asset summary. Garrett skimmed the first page too quickly. Celia sat close, holding his arm as if proximity could stabilize the outcome. You cannot take everything, Garrett said. I worked for this family too. My lawyer nodded and opened the second folder. Let us look at numbers. 10 years of income, 10 years of expenses. Your salary versus what left the accounts for your research, your mother's care, your sister's lifestyle, and personal spending tied to your access. The gap was not subtle. Support given exceeded income earned by more than $1 million. Silence followed. Celia leaned in, whispering that reputation mattered, that signing quietly was better than dragging this through the university. That word landed. Reputation. The next pages showed documented misuse of funds, hotel charges, travel expenses, gifts, dates that overlapped with work claims. If this proceeds to court, my lawyer said calmly, these records become public. The university will be notified. Employment will be reviewed. Garrett's jaw tightened. Pride fought reality. Reality won. He asked one final question. What does she want? Full custody, no alimony, no debt collection, just a clean end. Celia squeezed his hand. Sign. We can rebuild. You are smart. Money is not everything. He signed. The pen shook. When the papers were gathered, my lawyer stood. One last message from my client, she said. She thanks you for showing her the truth. She wishes you well. Silence. They were left sitting there holding a copy of an ending they did not expect. Freedom looks different when you have to pay for it yourself. 6 months passed. Life did not collapse, it clarified. Garrett's world narrowed quickly. Without funding, his project ended. Without quiet protection, questions followed. A temporary suspension became permanent distance. His days filled with explanations instead of lectures. Daphne's health required management he had never handled before. Appointments, payments, decisions. Tessa struggled most. Luxury had trained her to avoid effort, and reality offered no shortcuts. Celia left first. Love built on rescue does not survive responsibility. When bills arrived and attention faded, inspiration turned into accusation. She blamed him for promises he could no longer afford. I heard none of this directly. That mattered. My life grew quieter in ways I had forgotten were possible. Therapy helped me untangle guilt from loyalty. Mornings with my children became slower. No shouting, no tension masked as normal. We moved to a lakefront condo. Smaller, lighter hours. I returned to work with focus, not urgency. For the first time, success felt like choice, not obligation. People asked if I regretted how firm I had been. I answered honestly, because love that requires self-erasure is not love, it is labor. Because boundaries are not punishment, they are clarity. Because when someone calls you cold for protecting yourself, what they mean is that you stopped being useful. I did not destroy a family. I stopped funding a lie. Today, I live without fear of being misunderstood. My children laugh easily. I sleep deeply. If you are watching this and carrying everyone, pause and ask yourself one question. Are they holding your hand or holding your wallet? If this story resonated with you, like the video, share it with someone who needs permission to choose themselves, and leave a comment telling me where you are watching from or what boundary you wish you had set sooner. Your story matters too. This is the art of revenge, where dignity is louder than shouting and self-respect is the final victory. I am sharing this story not to glorify revenge, but to tell the truth about what happens when kindness is mistaken for weakness. For years, I believed that love meant endurance, that if I gave enough, waited long enough, sacrificed quietly enough, everything would eventually balance out. It did not. It only taught others that my limits were flexible. What saved me was not anger, it was clarity. I did not scream, I did not beg, I did not compete with someone younger or louder. I stepped back, looked at the facts, and chose myself with calm precision. That is something I want you to remember. If you are in a situation where you are constantly fixing, paying, smoothing over, or apologizing just to keep peace, ask yourself what peace really costs you. Love should not require you to disappear. Marriage should not feel like unpaid labor. Family should not treat you like a resource. Walking away does not mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally stopped lying to yourself. If this story spoke to you, take a moment to like the video. It helps this channel reach others who may need these words more than they realize. Share it with someone who feels trapped by obligation. Leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from or what boundary you wish you had set sooner. Your story matters too. This has been The Art of Revenge, where dignity is louder than shouting and self-respect is the final victory.